And all of this is there to make you feel emotionally worn and to just say, I don't care about anything. I don't care what's happening across the ocean in other countries. I don't care what's happening in my own town. I don't care what's happening with anybody. I'm not going to pick up my phone today and call anybody and check in on anybody because no one's going to do it for me because we're all living in our own little digital world. So for today's video, I want to talk about something that I thoroughly believe is the greatest existential threat to mankind right now, okay? It's not AI, it's not nuclear war, it's not any of these things. It is emotional numbing. And by the end of this video, you're gonna understand why. If you feel emotionally numb, it is not your fault. Number two, whose fault is it? And what methods are they using to hijack your brain? And number three, not only a hopeful message, but a way out of emotional numbing. A way to take back control, okay? Let's get into it. So the thing I want to say first is that you are not a bad person for not caring, all right? The way that the world is, we are constantly trading connection for convenience, okay? It's not your fault that you feel emotionally numb to the world's problems. We live in a very weird place right now. We live in a world that demands that you care about it. You're supposed to care about what's happening in every country, all around the world, all the time, 24/7. And if you don't, you're a bad person. There's a big demand list that the world is making of you, and you have to care about all of it. No, you don't. Because empathy is a finite resource. We don't have the capacity to be able to care about everything. So when everything says that you must care about it, what happens? Well, apathy becomes a survival mechanism, and you wind up caring about nothing. Even worse, what happens is this thing called mean world syndrome, where once you see so many negative triggers and so many bad things happening, you can't help but feel under threat by the world around you. This is a bad place to be mentally. This is a bad way to live. And actually, what we live in right now is called the post-ironic era. All right, let me explain. All the memes online and all the humor is steeped in nihilism. Nothing has meaning. The humor is dark, and any little hint of sentiment is cringe and should be avoided. Ridicule and skepticism is the way to live. Don't believe in anything. Everything is bullshit. We're gonna get to that, but first, let's kind of understand what's happening, right? You have this part in your brain called the amygdala, and the amygdala is your emotional processing center. It's when you're scrolling and you're seeing good things, bad things, positive triggers, negative triggers, everything is passing through your amygdala. And we really can't help but when we see something on a screen, emotionally respond to it. So that part of our brain that is processing all this emotional stuff is getting completely burnt out. All right, which is why I say it's not your fault. You're not a bad person for being emotionally numb to the things around you, especially because everything around you is shaped, perfected, and honed to a razor's edge to just make you feel maximum emotion and give maximum attention. Which brings us to the idea of digital desensitization, okay? As we see more and more things, more and more violence, more and more cruelty, more and more suffering, mean world syndrome, our brain tends to shut off a little bit. We're putting it into overdrive mode. And this desensitization, it not only shuts off our brains, but it makes it to where when we experience that stimulus for real in life, we have less of a reaction to it. And the thing that really bothers me is this paradox of authenticity that we live in now, because we've seen so many fake ass people on the internet for so long that we've rejected it and swung the other way. So now there's this demand by viewership for authenticity, that raw, real, vulnerable, right? But now it feels kind of performative. Now it feels emotionally dull and hollow when people try to put their authentic selves online. It feels like just another performative thing to get views, to get clout, which is extremely weird in this age of parasocial relationships. This right here, me to you, this is amazing because we can connect in the comments, but to a degree, this is one-sided. And when you take people that have extremely large followings, Okay, it's impossible to respond to every comment. It's impossible to make people feel seen and heard. So you tend to get these communities that gather around single influencers, and there's a parasocial relationship where it's one-sided. One side feels like they know this person deeply and they're friends, and the other side feels like they understand the audience, but there's not that friendship and that deep connection happening for the most part, right? So if you combine the paradox of authenticity with this weird parasocial dynamic that we live in, it gets very weird. We're on very shaky ground when it comes to human connection in general right now. All of this leads to digital desensitization, okay? And the last thing I want to talk about is algorithmic detachment, real quick. This is when you are scrolling on your phone, on your TV, on your computer, that algorithm, when you stop, when something catches your eye, goes, okay, he likes this, he doesn't like that. She likes this, she doesn't like that. And it's constantly putting what in front of you, what catches your brain, what hooks your brain. And the thing is, deep negative emotions hook your brain. People crying, death, a lot of bad stuff. So the stronger the emotion, the more it hooks your brain, the more you're going to see of stronger emotions. This feedback loop of algorithmic detachment is actually causing you to take the deepest, most profound things of human experience and emotion and desensitize yourself to them specifically. And what grows out of this is a deep cynicism, okay? A rejection of sentiment, a rejection of the real experience and emotion, okay? Everything becomes a hollowed out human experience. Once again, I want to say it's not your fault. It's everything is happening around you, making you feel this way. I'm just letting you know what levers are being pulled and by whom and how to get out of it. So part of the reason that we find sentiment and the idea of deep human emotion now so cringe is because of also this like weaponized optimism, okay? Always looking for the bright side, always looking for the silver lining. We want to be that person. We all want to be that person that's bright and sunny and bubbly and just monk-like chill, right? We want to do that. But when all of that is used as sound bites against us to make us feel bad about the fact that we live in reality, and that soundbite does not, we reject the sentiment of authenticity. We reject the sentiment of happiness, and we become emotionally numb, specifically looking for positive triggers to reject all the time. And it's all bullshit. Those positive triggers, once you look at them long enough, you can start to see that it's bullshit. A great example are those videos of people saving animals, and you only have to look into it for 2 seconds to see, oh, it's those people that are actually putting those animals in danger to make those videos, to get those views. Yeah, so you can't really blame people for becoming emotionally numb when everything is attacking your amygdala to feel the deepest emotions, to hijack your brain and steal your attention. And not only is it like influencers and content creators and parasocial relationships that are just like making you numb to the idea of sentiment, okay? It is also this distrust in institutions, of corporations, of governments, okay? Of social responsibility movements, okay? We can only take in so much. The cycle of information and be told what's important before we lose the ability to decide what's important for ourselves. Then we turn apathy, emotional numbness, into the only survival mechanism we have. This is bad. And what happens in this hollowed out human experience is the golden age of vicarious living. You watch people in crisp 4K walk through cities you've never been to and eat meals that you've never eaten but you'd like to, and that's like some type of substitution for you doing it, right? It kind of takes away the reward of you actually having to buy the ticket to go to the place to do the thing. And this culture of substitution is kind of what I'm talking about, okay? Parasocial relationships between audiences and influencers, that is a substitution for genuine connections and friendships. We do the same thing with families eating meal kits that they order, or not even eating food, just taking a multivitamin. So that way the food that you eat and prepare doesn't have to have all those vitamins and minerals. And instead of going out and engaging with a very messy reality, we are getting a nice, crisp, algorithmically curated feed showing us exactly what we want to see all the time, even though a lot of that stuff is not good for us. But here's the thing, you actually have a capacity. You have a limited capacity, not just for empathy, but connection, all right? And it's this thing called like Dunbar's number, which I think a lot of people have heard about at this point, and it has to do with the size of human brains, but it goes a little something like this. Humans are only capable of so many connections, so many friends, people that they actually care about and that they believe care about them. And that number tends to be somewhere between 100 to 250. It averages out around 150 is what most people say. So think about this. If you were limited to 150 connections, how many people, if you had a pen and paper right now, could you go write down on a list that you really care about and that you believe really care about you? If 150 is the cap, are we getting anywhere close to that in today's society? I don't think so, because we are substituting organic experiences and organic connection with synthetic experiences and synthetic connection. And all of this is there to make you feel emotionally worn and burn out, and to just say, fuck it. I don't care about anything. I don't care what's happening across the ocean in other countries. I don't care what's happening in my own town. I don't care what's happening with anybody. I'm not going to pick up my phone today and call anybody and check in on anybody because no one's going to do it for me, because we're all living in our own little digital worlds. And a lot of the mental health advice online, when you talk about emotional numbing, they say this is a mental health disorder. And it's like, yeah, that's true. And you should talk to someone about it. And yeah, that's true too, because it's a really dark, slippery slope. If you can go from not caring about the world and other people and be fully desensitized, it's a very short step to not caring about yourself and your own life. This is something that if you feel yourself sliding down, you should seek out professional help. It's not good. But also know that it's not your fault. Everything around you right now is trying to steal your fucking soul. All right? So let's go to something a little happier. It only makes perfect sense to me that in this age of parasocial relationships and digital desensitization, that we need a solution here that is to abstain from those things. But I realize it's not super realistic for everyone to put their phones down and just like not look at them. I mean, I feel like we're ingrained now enough as cyborgs to where you really have to make the effort to do that to make it feasible, and most people aren't going to do that. So here's what you can do instead of that, even though that would be the best thing. Most social media apps have a restricted mode that will stop violent graphic content from coming up on your feed. Number one, check that. Number two, they usually have restricted keywords. So you can put in bad words. So then your content, your feed starts to become a little less sensationalized, right? And I go pretty wild with it. I pretty much max out whatever I can to put a list of words that I don't want to be looking at every day. I look at my phone every day. I don't want to be looking at that shit every day. Control your feed. You can't control sometimes what you stop on and look at, but you can control with these tools what gets put in front of your eyes. There's also something that I think we should all be doing, and it's because of this thing called Pearson's Law, which essentially says that which is measured improves. So if you want to control your finances and save more money, you should be tracking every penny. If you want to lose weight, you should be weighing in, you should be tracking your calories. If you are feeling emotionally numb and burnt out by the digital world, you need to be tracking your screen time. You need to be tracking it the way a bodybuilder tracks their macros, okay? How much time are you actually spending looking at your phone and scrolling? Because there's a trick happening. There's a trick happening on your brain where you think it's this, but it's actually probably 2 or 3 times that. And unless you actually track the accumulation of minutes that you are spending on your phone, you're never gonna know how big of a problem you actually have. Do it right now. Look at your screen time and maybe see if there's a way where you can like cut it in half, right? Start putting those limitations in place, right? Put the limitations in place for what is going to show up on your feed through keywords in restricted mode, and then start putting limitations in place when it comes to screen time. The other thing you can do, deliberately, conscientiously make the decision to watch low stimulus content, okay? Stuff that doesn't try to get your heart rate up. Stuff that will make you feel calm and at peace, all right? Make no mistake, I don't want you to pacify yourself with content, but we're all gonna be consuming content. We're all gonna be looking at our phones. What if we just kind of controlled the type of content we were looking at a little bit better? Pay attention to the music, pay attention to the graphics on screen, pay attention to the way that the person is talking, pay attention to how fast the cuts are on these things. How hard is this thing working to suck your brain into it? This is kind of like saying the quiet part out loud when it comes to YouTube. I use some of these things. There's a lot of creators that use all of them 10 times more than they should, and it's fucking exhausting and fatiguing to watch. But to say like, hey, pay attention to that shit, be aware of it, and reject it is kind of like saying the quiet part out loud for a creator. I'm just saying, right? I'm here to do you a favor. On top of low stimulus content that you could be consuming, what about just like low stimulus activities, dude? I'm a big fan of reading. I'm a big fan of drawing. I'm a big fan of just playing solitaire with a deck of cards, something tactile, something you're doing with your hands, right? The less time you can spend looking at a screen, the better for your brain. It's important that we feel connected to other human beings. But how can we possibly do that when the world demands that we care about everything all the time, and every piece of technology, every soundbite we hear, every news thing we read is just the fucking worst? How are we supposed to care? The answer is start eliminating some of that stuff. The world's problems are not your problems, but we can't be apathetical. You know what is your problem? When's the last time you called your mom or dad? When's the last time you called your sibling or cousin or friend? When's the last time you offered to go help someone for free, volunteered in your community, did the things that actually make a difference? Whatever kind of digital detox plan that you can do, you need to do. And then when we build that strong foundation and we learn to use those muscles again, maybe then we can dip a toe in what's going on in the world. Maybe then. Anyway, I know that was a lot, all right? I said in the beginning of this video, and it's something I firmly believe, that we are looking down the barrel of an existential crisis of emotional numbing. And some might even say it's by design. If everyone chooses not to care about what's going on in the world and we go apathetic and docile, guess who gets to do what they want? The powers that be that control the world. That's another video entirely. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you guys watching these videos. As always, I love you. Thanks for coming. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.